Howdy, guys. Apologize for being a few minutes late. We're going to get started. We're going to have a short Periscope tonight. We've got a few announcements, a few things I want to talk about that we addressed in the title or the subject of the Periscope broadcast. Very serious day, very sober things going on, very sober realities for those who love liberty, those who love freedom. I'm going to give this just a few minutes while people are joining. I see the numbers going up very fast. I have blocked the comments. Let me just start off by saying I want to thank you for spreading the word about our Periscopes and sharing it on Facebook. Remember, you can do that. You can swipe up on your phone and you can share these on Periscope. If you'll notice our freecapitalist.com essay, we've received about 10,000 readers of that essay on the LaVoy Finicum murder. And if you'll notice on the Periscope following, we've got about an additional 3,500 Periscope followers in the last 24 hours. So if you would please keep spreading the word, we'll keep getting the word out. We hope to see that pattern continue as we get principles of liberty into the minds and hearts of the people. I have continued to block the comments for tonight just with the rapid influx of new participants. There were so many trolls last night. It was bogging down the system, and it was, for some reason, and it was too hard to continue to respond to comments. So if you want to be able to participate in these nightly podcasts and make comments for now, just send me a message on Facebook, and then what I'll do is I'll follow you on Periscope, and then we'll set it up that way. And you can find me on Facebook by going to the Free Capitalist page on Facebook, the Rick Kerber Free Capitalist page on Facebook, or those of you who know my personal page. You can also send me a message by just going to freecapitalist.com. Look, some sober things going on. If you haven't read the essay that I wrote yet on freecapitalist.com, let me just start off by saying I want to be pretty direct with you tonight. Tonight, I'm everybody always worries about how people are going to respond or what people are going to think and this kind of thing. And I just want to share with you what's on my mind and some thoughts for the liberty movement and what we do going forward in the context of the Bundy situation up in Oregon, the LaVoy Finicum murder, and all the questions that have been coming in. I've gotten so many messages and so many contacts. I'm going to speak very candidly about that. I'm going to speak very candidly about some of the other voices that you're hearing in the cause of liberty, some of the other people talking, this kind of thing. So let's just start off with the essay. The original essay that I wrote on freecapitalist.com was basically me taking the three eyewitness accounts that we had up until that time, or the three statements regarding the eyewitness accounts, and comparing them and assessing credibility to them and applying them to the facts and circumstances. I know that's a little bit more detailed than most of you are used to. Everybody likes the one-paragraph Facebook post and this kind of thing. But I really wanted to apply the evidence and the analysis just at a very basic level, just to think through things and then extend a call of liberty and extend a battle cry, if you will, to the people who are serious. Because, not everybody is serious in the liberty movement. Not everybody. I've got an issue here with the camera stand. Hold on just a second. And you know this. You know that among your friends and among your family members, etc., not everybody is as serious about the liberty movement. And I'm going to give you an example from my family. Let me tell you about my family. I have a constitutional scholar in my family who is very well known and very well loved, and he posted on his Facebook an article about LaVoy Finicum's murder from MSNBC News. But he didn't post the article from my website at freecapitalist.com. Now, I know we see eye to eye on many things. I know we're united in the cause of liberty, and I ask myself, why would this person who's so close to me not post my essay, but he posted an essay by MSNBC.com? I have another friend who's an attorney who we're trying to make sure that everybody up in Oregon gets the legal representation if they want help. We've been reaching out. If you have personal contact with any of them, please put them in touch with me if they need help. We've been in touch with the Bundy family. We're offering our services there. But I had a lawyer friend of mine who said, Rick, there's a price to pay associated with you. It's like you're coming back from the dead. He says, years ago you were very, visible, and you're out there and you had your Free Capitalist radio show, and then you got into this battle with the government. And the government, that battle with the government tainted you. And none of us knew what was going to happen to you. None of us knew whether you were going to come back. And now you're back, and it's like, wow, if I post something from you, does that start to taint me? And does that start to make me look bad? Because, the government accused you of all kinds of things. And I started thinking about it in the context of what's going on with the Bundys. And there's a battle for liberty that's being waged right in front of our eyes that you don't see. And you don't get shot for it. It actually can be even just as deadly or worse. We're living in a society where they're the outcast. The more and more the people that stand up for liberty and want to do something more than talk about it, they're outcasts. And the more and more we pigeonhole people, and we start to call people like the Bundys militants and terrorists, and you even heard today in the press conference by the FBI when they released this video of LaVoy's murder, they referred to how they understood these people as militants and how they had been monitoring them as militants. And you've got to be careful, my friends, and I'm speaking candidly to you, and I hope you'll spread the message through your family and your friends. The most powerful weapon the government has right now is not the military, and it's not the police force. The most powerful weapon the government has right now is the indicia of credibility. Whenever the government tells you somebody's bad, they have an agenda. There's a reason they're telling you it's bad. Whenever the government tells you somebody's good, there's a reason. So we have licensing regimes and we have regulatory regimes where the government essentially gives their stamp of approval and says, okay, this person meets our stamp of approval. Oh, you don't have a business license. Oh, you don't have a registration here. Oh, you don't do this. See, you're not okay. You're not with us. You're not complying with us, and we're trying to stigmatize people for doing that. And then what happens is when people like the Bundys kind of color outside the lines, and like LaVoy Finicum color outside the lines, instead of actually engaging with them and debating with them, we call them terrorists. Really, Americans, Oregonians were really worried that a bunch of guys with, weapons were up at a bird sanctuary 30 miles away from civilization? We shut down the schools and then barricaded the courthouse? Really? Let's just think about this for a minute. We don't even debate anymore. We don't debate with people who have different ideas. So I'm working on a legal matter, and I'm putting that off because I wanted to keep my commitment to talk with you. Just beware, my friends. Beware that you don't fall into this trap. I was talking to someone in the Bundy group, okay, and I'm not going to use that name just because I don't have their permission and they're a friend. And they were worried about getting my help in the legal community because I've already battled with the government. And I said, man, are we friends or not? Are we united in liberty or not? Are you going to stand up for liberty or not? Do you only stand up for liberty when the cameras are on? Do you only stand up for liberty when it's popular to do so? Or do you only stand up for liberty when it makes you look like a leader? Or do you stand up for liberty day in and day out when it's hard as hell and when nobody around you seems to be supporting you? Do you stand up for liberty when you can't live the life that the appearances of your friends think are important? Do you stand up for liberty through thick and thin? Because if you do, you have a duty to be friends with those in the cause of liberty. And to be friends with those in the cause of liberty, you've got to be willing to look past the labels that the media and the government use. Look around you. Just because the government has labeled someone something, credible or uncredible, valid or invalid, use your own mind. Use your own mind. And that's what I want to say about this video. Be careful. This video was packaged and presented, and it's so funny. I have to tell you, I copied some statements from the press release just to give you an idea. Before they ever showed the video to anybody, they said, this is the FBI, just to be very clear. These are our people, right? They represent us, right? They said, we know there are various versions of what occurred during this event, most inaccurate. Oh, really? Have you tallied them up? Which ones are inaccurate? See, they don't even want to deal with the specific versions of the events. They don't want to say, hey, we read freecapitalist.com and here's our issue with it. They want to cast these bright nets because what they want you to do is say, well, most are inaccurate, but you can come and talk to us. Okay? Some are inflammatory. To that end, we want to do what we can to lay out an honest and unfiltered view of what happened and how it happened. Now, words matter, my friends. Listen to this. The FBI, right before they show the video, they say, we want to lay out an honest and unfiltered view. Now, look, I'm not anti-government. I know the government calls some groups anti-government. But you all who know me know I love this country, and I'm thanking God every day for the good men and women who serve in the federal government and the state governments. Matter of fact, it was the state of Oregon that killed LaVoy. I mean, the FBI was accomplice, but, look, overstretched government is bad. Principles are good. The proper role of government is good. So I feel bad thinking about the truth here because the truth incriminates the FBI. The truth incriminates the state of Oregon. The truth does not incriminate the citizens, and the truth doesn't incriminate the occupiers. We're going to get there in a minute. But listen to this. Our own government is like George Orwell here. It says, we're going to lay out, quote, remember these words, quote, an honest and unfiltered view of what happened and how it happened. Okay? Now, they go on to say later on, now because there was an airplane, they said, we had an airplane, we were watching these people, and there was a plane in the air, and what I'm about to show you is a video from that plane, he says. Okay? But then he qualifies and says, but because of the flight pattern, there are portions where trees obscure what is happening. Well, who establishes the flight pattern of the airplane? They got the whole damn sky. They're the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Who determines what the flight pattern is of the airplane? There were some critical places in that video where all you could see is a pine tree. It was either incompetence or suspect. But remember, they want to show us an honest and unfiltered view of what happened and how it happened. Don't blame them for the flight pattern of their own airplane and their own pilot. And then, this is great. He says, the details that I'm about to provide to you are based both on an analysis of this video and some ground level observations of agents and troopers on the scene. Or in other words, I'm going to tell you what the video means by giving you my analysis of the video, and I'm going to use ground level observations of agents and troopers on the scene that you don't have access to. Matter of fact, this is an ongoing investigation. We can't give you that information, but this is an honest and unfiltered view. All right. They go on to say, I want to caution you that the video does show the shooting death of LaVoy Finicum. We realize that viewing that piece of the video will be upsetting to some people. Well, I'll tell you what was upsetting to me. What was upsetting to me is you had to spend a lot of time, money, and manpower to build this ambush. If you would have spent half that damn time talking to these people, if you would have had the guts to go up there and talk to these people, if you would have arranged meetings, if you would have worked hard to talk to these people, you did almost nothing. You set them up, you put them on the phone with the person whose name you wouldn't give them, and you treated them like they were freaking Al-Qaeda. They were not. They had family and ties for decades into this community. And you called them foreigners, but the FBI brought in foreigners. I promised you to God that all those people in those black SUVs were not Oregonians following Ammon and his crew down the road. Lying, sinister, manipulative, deceptive, doublespeak is what that is. Yeah, watching LaVoy get shot was disturbing. But watching the rest of the video was equally disturbing because it showed that the federal government of the United States and the government of the state of Oregon disowned these citizens first. They were prosecutor, police, and jury before any of our formal institutions got involved. They'd already decided these people were enemies. They already decided they were guilty and a threat. They treated them as if they were treating members of the Palestinian Liberation Organization in the 1970s. Or they treated him as if they were treating them as members of the mob and Al Capone that they'd been battling for decades. These were men. They didn't just catch him out for a beer. They didn't just catch him out for a joyride. They caught him while they were driving to a town hall meeting where there were over 200 supporters. And they didn't want him to gain support. That disturbed me. We'll talk about the video in just a minute, but clearly it was an ambush. They spent enormous resources to make this happen, enormous planning to make this happen. Yet they wouldn't take these men seriously enough to talk to them. Even the congressman from Oregon talked about their issues on the floor of the Congress. But our law enforcement, our executive branch of government, they couldn't be bothered. They treated them like the Viet Cong. They treated them like the German Nazis. They treated them like our enemies. That's what disturbed me, first and foremost. Now listen to this. But, he's going to be honest and unfiltered. He says, now, the details that he says, we realize that viewing that piece of the video will be upsetting to some. But we feel, notice the anti-intellectualism here, that it is necessary to show the whole thing unedited and in the interest of transparency. And then he goes on to say, now what I'm going to show you is an edited version. People who are interested can go to our YouTube channel to see the unedited version. But for this press conference, I'm going to show you an edited version because I want to provide you an honest and unfiltered and unedited and complete version in the interest of transparency. And then he says, looking at the white truck about 4 minutes into the video, Ryan Payne exits through a back door. It's difficult to see behind the trees, but in the lower right-hand corner, you can see him with his hands up being approached by the law enforcement officers and being taken into custody. Think about that. Reread my essay. Throughout this time, agents and troopers are providing verbal commands to the occupants to surrender. We can't comment on what may have been going on in the truck at this time, but those details may come out later as part of the overall shooting investigation. What were your commands? What were their responses? What was going on in the truck? I mean, you want to be honest and unfiltered. You want to show us the whole thing unedited and in the interest of transparency. But we can't comment on what may have been going on in the truck at this time. Those details may come out later. They think we're stupid. They treat us like we're impotent, and there's a reason. We deserve it, actually, most of us, because in the liberty movement, we've acted like idiots. We're going to talk about that at the end here. He says, Finicum leaves the truck and steps through the snow. Agents and troopers on scene had information that Finicum and others would be armed. Really? What information was that? You want to be honest and give me an unfiltered view, and you want to be transparent. Why don't you tell me that? On at least 2 occasions, Finicum reaches his right hand toward a pocket on the left inside portion of his jacket. He did have a loaded 9mm semi-automatic handgun in that pocket. Now pause. Remember, this is not a judge making findings of fact. He's making legal conclusions and factual conclusions based on his observation, but notice the doublespeak. I don't know if you caught it. Finicum reaches his right hand toward a pocket on the left inside portion of his jacket. If you watch the video very carefully, some people have asked, well, maybe he was shot. Maybe he wasn't reaching for a gun, he was shot. Maybe. We got to have a coroner's report, right? Because we got to have an honest and unfiltered view, and we want to be transparent. Heaven forbid. Yeah, very realistic. Very, very good chance. But I'll tell you what's even more telling than that, and I haven't seen it commented on by anybody. Where's he looking? Watch it again. Where's he looking? There's a man standing right here pointing a gun in his face. There are trucks with men behind them pointing guns at him. He knows that. They've already been shooting at him. He has his hands up and then his hands out as he's going through, and then he clearly reaches down and comes over and then reaches down again, and they say he was reaching for a gun. Maybe. Maybe not. Watch his face. Is it a circus? Do you normally see all the people with guns and go, hold on a minute, guys, let me turn around and get a gun? And then he turns around and looks at him again, and then he turns around and looks down here. And by the way, he's not looking down where he's grabbing. Look where he's looking. He's facing completely away from these people. Look at it. Just watch. Just go watch that. Then he says, but here's another question. So he knows they're there. Unlike him, this was a surprise. Unlike the police, who were not surprised by the situation, he's just discovering for the first time, oh crap, this is a setup. Oh crap, they're shooting at me. Oh crap, we got problems. Oh crap, there may be people in the trees. Oh crap. You got to put yourself in that situation. He had stopped for 6 minutes, 8 minutes, or whatever on the side of the road, and then for some reason he took off. We can speculate. I want to talk about that in a minute. But he took off, so he knew the police were coming. He knew they wanted him to do something he didn't want to do. According to the witnesses, he said he wanted to go talk to the sheriff. And so he takes off and he's driving down the road. He's not stupid, right? He knows they're following him. He sees them. He's aware that he's not listening to the music or jamming out or anything. Now think about that. And then he sees a roadblock. Okay? And clearly he sees it because he has to try to drive around it. He doesn't appear to slow down much, if anything at all in the video. And then he turns and he starts to drive around the roadblock. And immediately after getting stuck, he jumps out. You watch it again. He jumps out quickly. You try to jump out of a car going up a hill in the snow. He jumps out quickly with his hands up. Running away. By the way, not charging the freaking officers unless you mean the people hidden in the trees. Now, before you jump to the conclusion about the gun again, just think about this. If you wanted to die in a blaze of glory, if you wanted to have a shootout with the police, and the only gun you have is tucked inside a pocket opposite your body, and you've already been sitting there and driving there thinking about it, why do you go flying out of the car without a gun in your hand? Why don't you start shooting from inside the car? Some people say, well, he wanted to protect those that were in the car. I agree with you. I think that's true. We can only speculate, but let me just tell you this. He jumps out pretty fast. And in the interest of being honest and unfiltered, there's a lot more evidence to come, but here's what we do know. The statement of the third witness that I put on my website. I'm just going to pull it up. I updated it, by the way. If you haven't gone to read it recently, I've updated it. I've added some update news sources, so you can go there and you can read it again. Just go to freecapitalist.com. Share it if you're not afraid to be associated with me, and let other people know this is where the truth is. This is where the truth lives, my friends. So there were three initial. I examined in my essay 3 accounts. The first account was the account that Ammon had talked to his wife. Some people have been critical of that and wondered how that was possible. I agree, there's some questions there. Then the second account is Mark McConnell's account, who admitted he didn't witness it, but he said that LaVoy charged the police. And you can tell by the video, there's no way in hell anybody saw what was going on that wasn't very nearby. And then you have Victoria Sharp's account. Victoria's account is vindicated in almost every instance. I'm going to publish a comparison of her audio recording in this video, so be looking for that. I'm going to publish that probably sometime tomorrow. But it vindicates her in almost every regard. And then the areas where we have questions, we need additional evidence. Certainly her testimony will be some of that evidence. Certainly a coroner's report will be some of that evidence. Certainly the reports of the people in the scene will be some of that evidence. Certainly the number of bullet holes in the truck will be some of that evidence. But let me just ask you some questions here. Let me just ask you some questions. Have you ever had someone point an automatic weapon at you? Would you say that you would act normally or with a more heightened sense of concern and paranoia if somebody was pointing a firearm at your head? What if 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people? In one scene on that video, I counted almost 40 armed law enforcement officers. According to Victoria's testimony, they started shooting at the first stop, which is why he started to drive away. So if they've already shot at you, does that change the calculus of how you should act? Now, after he's dead, at least after he's on the ground, why are they shooting in the truck? You see him clearly shooting the truck. Why? What possible reason? There's only one. The only legitimate possible reason to be shooting at the truck after LaVoy jumped out and you killed him dead is if you thought there was a threat in the truck. And how would you know there was a threat in the truck? You would have had to investigate somehow. But you'll notice nowhere in his statement it says anybody shot ever at the police. All he says is LaVoy had a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. Maybe he did. I don't know. Notice he doesn't say when he had it. He makes a very odd statement. He says, Finicum reaches his right hand toward a pocket on the left inside portion of his jacket. He did have a handgun in that pocket. When? That day? Or was that the information you had been provided? That you set up here, oh, we had received information that Finicum and others were armed. Yeah, this is our government being honest and unfiltered. Then, even if you go to YouTube and you watch the video, the unfiltered version, the unedited version, the first thing you notice is they filter out all the information about the airplane. Why? I can think of some reasons. The only thing they don't filter out is the date and timestamp, which shows the wrong date. Now, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist like that. I'm not a crazy person. And I don't jump to conclusions, but why? Why would you show that? But you don't show anything else. It'd be interesting to know why that was different, but then here's what's better. When you're watching the video, there are several instances. I marked them down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10 instances where the video fades in and out, like a transition. Like when I make videos to post online, there are like blur effects and cross effects. There are 10 instances where that happens in that video. Why? It's a video from an airplane. Why does it blur in and out? Then here's the funny thing. This is even the funnier thing. Was there another camera watching Ammon's car? Because if you notice in the beginning, it shows you both cars, right? But then it follows Finicum. But who's following the car and the cars and the arrests? Where's the camera following that? Where's the camera making sure that Ammon didn't pull a gun and shoot somebody? Or there wasn't somebody else in that Jeep? How did you know in the airplane to follow that white truck? Was there another camera? And so you had it on both and now you're only showing us one? Or did you know you should follow that white truck for a reason? Look, my friends, I'll tell you this much. The allegation that LaVoy was shot in cold blood does depend to some degree on your interpretation of the facts. If you believe it's okay for 40 armed members of our government to pre-plan and surround and ultimately kill LaVoy because they were afraid. Matter of fact, you know why they said they shot him? They said they shot him because of the proximity. Because of the proximity. Well, who created the proximity? In other words, do you think the law bears any responsibility for creating the circumstances under which this happened? Because let me ask you this. If you and I, by the way, they charged everybody with conspiracy, and if you probably don't know this, but under federal law, under conspiracy, you don't have to prove that they ever accomplished the aims of your conspiracy. So they charged them with the aim of interfering with the federal government. Can you believe that's a crime? And to do that, they just have to prove by their words and their deeds that they orchestrated together a plan, whether they got the intended result or not. If it was me and you, and we orchestrated a series of events where we planned to confront somebody with 40 armed men pointing, it's like bad sport. I mean, it was like a bad hunting sport. It was like somebody dreamt up a game. Let's take a guy who's frustrated and upset, who believes his government has betrayed him, who, let alone whether they have or not, who's defending what he believes is the most high law of the land, with his friends. Let's shoot at him. Let's provoke him, and let's shoot at his car. Let's shoot at him and chase him. And when he gets out, let's make sure we have guys in the trees. And let's see who can get him first, because he might get us. We have body armor on. We got big, heavy equipment. We got militarized gear. We're pre-planning this. We're arranging this. But we got to protect ourselves. Bullshit. When you take it upon yourself to orchestrate that circumstance, you owe him and every other citizen, black, white, in any other circumstance, you owe them humanity. And let me tell you, when people have 40 automatic weapons pointed at them, and if there were shots fired beforehand, you're provoking them, you don't get to shoot him dead and call it just or fair. You can call it a police action. You can call it a government operation. You can even claim that you had the right to do it under the law. That's a different argument. But you don't get to call it fair. You don't get to call it humane. You don't get to call it godly. You don't get to call it righteous. You don't get to call it, well, we were protecting ourselves. Why? If there was a gun in his pocket, he never even gets it out and points it at anybody. Think about that. Think about this for a minute. If I came into your house and I pointed a gun at your head, and I started giving you demands, and I told you, hey, I work for the government. I work for the government. You don't know that, but I do. I know that's a different circumstance, but I'm trying to illustrate a point. Let me ask you a question. Would you be afraid? If there were 40 guys pointing guns to your head, and let's say you have an open gun on your hip, why is it right for them to point the gun at your head and you don't get to protect yourself, but you simply go to potentially touch a hidden gun and they get to shoot you dead and leave you there for 10 minutes? Right? It's not fair. It's not like now you have two people pointing their guns at each other's heads. And some people say, well, the law enforcement has to act a certain way. Look, different circumstances, I understand. Tactically, I understand. You just don't get to tell me you shot him because you were afraid. Because if you were afraid, you were cowards. That's what it looked like to me. Cowards who didn't talk to these men in the beginning. And maybe not the patrolmen on the street. Maybe not the agents on the street. I'm going to wait for more evidence to come out before I call those individual men cowards. But the governor of Oregon, who pressed for this, the lead FBI agent who helped plan this, the field agents who orchestrated and planned and strategically arranged as cowards. These men challenge your authority. You're afraid. You're afraid they're going to go to Grant County and get a sheriff on their side. You're afraid those 200 protesters might come and join them. Heaven forbid in America somebody petition their government for change. Do something real. Well, let's move on to the next step of this topic. Where do we go from here? I want more facts to come out. I'm going to publish a comparison. I hope you'll promote that. I hope you'll share that on Facebook. I hope you'll read it. I hope it's good. If it's worth it, if it creates value for you. I think that'll be useful. I hope more facts will be useful. There's more to be said here. There's more to be observed. There's more to conclude. But I want to talk to you who think you may be part of saving the Constitution someday, or saving this country someday, or turning this country around someday. We can't be stupid. We can't afford to be stupid. We can't be naive. We got to serious up a little bit. I have people forwarding me videos. Saying, hey, this guy reminds me of you. I have a friend who really liked Pete Santilli's videos. Pete may be a fine guy, I don't know him. I watch his videos. He's not my leader in the freedom movement. Pete's a little too crazy. He's too irrational. He doesn't teach principles. He uses fanaticism. I might like him. I might be friends with him. I don't know. I don't know him. But that can't be our example of putting out reliable, consistent, principled information. Ammon Bundy was better at that. We've got to be careful, my friends. You can't pick freaks who can't articulate basic principles, who can't rationalize in logical sequences. You can't call those people your leaders. You can call them cheerleaders. You can call them personalities. You can call them entertainment. You can even call them helpful. That's fine. But it takes more than a video to be a leader in the freedom movement. And somebody, I think I got 5 versions of this video of this cowboy, an older fellow with the black hat on. And everybody's talking about how good this video is and how good this video is. And I listened very carefully. He said nothing. If you read through all this, he said, I'm angry. I'm mad. What should we do? And he asked rhetorical questions. But he's not leading anywhere. He just wants his day in the sun. He just wants you to like him. Give him likes on his video so he feels good. That's fine. You know, people speaking up is good. You know, it's like having a pen pal. It's good to be able to connect with people and hear them speak up. That's not why I'm talking to you. Okay? I don't want to be your entertainer. I'm just being real with you here. I don't want to be your entertainer. I don't want to be your agitator. I don't want to be your spokesperson. After I went through what I went through, for me, it is the kingdom of God and the United States of America. Now, some people says, well, that's crazy. That sounds crazy. I don't care what it sounds like. That's what it is. And if I'm going to serve God and serve my country, I've got to decide who I'm willing to follow, if anyone. And then I had to look in the mirror and say, Rick, do you believe you have any leadership role whatsoever in the cause of liberty? And I said, I had to be honest with myself, and I said, yes. Then you better act like a leader, brother. I'm talking to myself. And the first question is, where will you lead people? See, one of the reasons nobody knows what to do is because there are no leaders. And the answers I give aren't always as sensational as, I saw one of these patriot groups who wasn't there to protect him like they said they would be. So we should flood that town now with thousands of marchers to protest LaVoy's death. Boy, that'll teach them. Shut up. Really? That's your strategy to save America? Organize a militia, get a big brand, get a website, get famous, get on the TV talk shows, get a bunch of people following you so you can put out your militaristic sounding command orders and stand down orders and stand up orders and sit down orders and bullshit orders. And let's go to Oregon. We're going to protest. We're going to get 1,000 people. Just like those people did down in Ferguson. Yeah, those black folks, they really got that figured out. There's so much latent racism in some of these people. It's ridiculous. By the way, for you people who just misunderstood what I had, you got to turn your brain on. I was actually complimenting other protesters, but not liberty protesters. We have a higher standard than just marching around stomping our feet. We got to be smarter than that. We can't be blown about by every wind of doctrine related to the freedom movement. We got to make hard choices and live differently. There's another fellow, I kind of like him. He's got some videos out there named Gavin. I don't know him. He's a Christian fellow. Did a little research on him. He's an advocate. He speaks his mind and he goes around and protests and he brags about protesting. Well, if you're listening to this podcast tonight, I'm going to give you an invitation. I want you to make a choice. If you're a protester, or a complainer. Go watch Pete Santilli. Go watch Gavin. They got good things to say. They're helpful. Sometimes. They can be destructive. Be careful. But don't come back here. Because I don't want to protest. I'm never going to give you instructions on how to protest or complain. If you're interested in associating with me and my friends and the Free Capitalist Project and helping us build the American Liberty Society, we want to win. And I'm not saying that rhetorically or with hyperbole. You can't win as a protester. You can win points. You can win respect. You can win allegiance for a short period of time. Look at the disenfranchised groups in this country. Let me just speak real truthful with you. I have 2 black children. They won't be discriminated against as badly as other black children because they have lighter skin. And they grew up in a family that has greater privilege than many of the black people in this country and in this world. I pay attention. I grew up in a poor area where I had friends, many friends from all different walks of life, all different cultures and races and backgrounds. I want to talk about blacks in the civil rights movement for a minute. There have been some great civil rights leaders. They've made some great change. I have high degree of respect, believe it or not, for people like Martin Luther King and even people like Malcolm X. That respect is sometimes compartmentalized because there are parts of their lives that I really don't respect. But see, that's what you get to do when you make these people personalities instead of leaders. And I know it's fashionable to call them leaders. But in my mind, a leader is someone different. You see, in my mind, no offense, but they're nothing like George Washington. They were personalities who tried to inspire people to protest, but that didn't lead them to change their lives. If they did, not very effectively, because look at the world around you. We are never in 2016 going to arrange protests like they had in the 1960s. The government won't tolerate it. They'll kill us. And even then, look at the world. You look at the black community. You think the majority of people in the black community in America feel like the civil rights movement is accomplished and they have been led to the promised land? Do you believe that Dr. Martin Luther King, if he was here on the earth today, would say, I've reached the dream. This is my dream. No. When I say I want to win, my friends, I don't want to be famous. I don't want to have my face on a plaque or statue. I don't want to have people speak respectfully about us. I mean, yes, all those things are fine. But that's not my goal or my aim or my objective. My aim and my objective is to work with some friends, like-minded people, people who love liberty, people who understand the principles of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, and people who want to finish the work the founders started. That they want to follow the model that the founders laid out, and they want to complete the work of the American Revolution and the achievement of the American Revolution, and they want to move the cause of liberty forward. That means that they personally live differently. That means that their lives in their homes are different. That means that their relationships are different. That means their walk and their talk are the principles of freedom and liberty. That when they worship their God, they understand it's the God of heaven who gave them their liberty, not the gods in Washington, D.C., or even the God called the Constitution. It gives us no rights. That cowboy, nice fellow, who gave this great speech about, now that LaVoy's dead, we should all stand up. I mean, you could just insert political tragedy next year and play his video again. But, he was just exercising his rights. The Constitution says the First Amendment gives us the right to, brother, come to my house. I'll love you. Really, we can be friends. Your kids might be great friends with my kids. But you need to get smarter. You've got to change your life. You've got to change your perspective. You've got to become a leader in your life, in your home, and you've got to lead your home in righteousness. And you cannot lead your home in righteousness if you don't know anything about the principles upon which this movement must be based. You're just a whiner and complainer. It's probably what you do at home too. Whine and complain. Bitch and moan. You don't have the life you love. You're a liberal socialist too. You just want the world to be remade in a better image than the liberal socialists. I mean, I'm not talking to you, right? I don't like watching those videos because they don't lead. They ask questions that don't lead anywhere. They make suggestions that don't accomplish anything. I want to live in a world where, in my lifetime, I don't drive down the road afraid of 40 freaking militarized law enforcement officers trying to exercise a traffic stop on me. And I want every white person and black person and person of every other race, gay or straight, Christian or Jew or atheist or Muslim, I want them to have that same peace. And that's a freaking tall order. Look at the world. That's not easy. And you don't get to have your little amateur school ideas. You know, like when a little kid builds with his Lego set a car, and he pretends like a car, and he's running it around. Look, Mom, look, Dad. I love my little children when they do that because they're coming up with concepts and ideas. But we're not 5 years old. And don't give me the lecture about Jesus and the young ones. I understand that too. That's not what I'm talking about. And you don't get to escape this by some silly cop-out. You're not 5 years old. And pretending to be driving around the car of liberty isn't a revolution that will change this world. Driving around in your little car of liberty, elect Ted Cruz, he's going to save us. No, he's not. Neither is Ammon Bundy. Matter of fact, Ammon Bundy's going to spend the next several years of his life fighting for his life when most people will have long since forgotten his name, when his wife's figuring out how to raise their children. And the sad part about that is she'll rely on friends and family, and she'll rely on her faith in God, and she's going to go through that refiner's fire. And you won't have that experience with her, and frankly, I'm worried about how hard that is because I've been through that refiner's fire. You don't get to lead in liberty by simply calling yourself a leader. My invitation to you, my friends, is think carefully. Choose wisely. Get real. Nobody is going to remake this country and save the Constitution without building a new society. For most of you, that sounds like colonizing Mars. Matter of fact, it might be easier to colonize Mars because you could at least watch a movie about how other people have depicted that might happen. And there's almost no modern reference to how to build a new American liberty society. But we can do it. It's a very rational and amazing blueprint. I'm going to end with this comment tonight, guys. I put in that essay about LaVoy Finicum's murder a call and said, let's make contact, let's go. We've got to have a blueprint. We've got to have all the concepts. We've got to reform our institutions. We've got to deal with our churches and our schools and our governments and our medical institutions and our businesses and our corporations and our art and our culture and our play. And we got to reform all that. We got to change all that. We got to be powerful in all that. And the reason these existing organizations don't work is they need a blueprint. And let me just tell you, if one of you quote Lysander Spooner to me again, I'm going to publicly humiliate you. Because I've read Lysander Spooner more times than you've probably even, I've read it more times than days you've known he exists, for most of you. I understand the principles of nonviolence. I understand the theoretical positions of anarchism, modern-day anarchism. I know who Lou Rockwell is. I know who Marie Rothbard is. I've read the Chicago School. I've read von Mises. I've read the Austrian School. I'm not a college professor, so I don't assign you books. But see, unlike you driving around in your Liberty car, not you, your sister, this movement is real to me. And I don't need a quote from Lysander Spooner to tell me what needs to happen, because Lysander Spooner isn't the genius of American liberty. Thomas Jefferson is. And I'll put Thomas Jefferson up against Lysander Spooner any day. Now, this guy says to me, well, we don't need a blueprint, Rick. That's just more tyranny. We don't need a blueprint. We just need to all be free. And, when crisis happens, there'll be enough people who love liberty that they'll just show up. Liar. You're deluded. That has never been how freedom has ever existed on this earth. These people even say, well, the founders really just instituted a machinery of tyranny. Liar! Nothing in the history of the world accomplished what America has accomplished. Nothing. You're deluded. You just don't want to follow the rules because you don't understand that men don't make them. You still think the Constitution gives rights. We need a blueprint. And it's not my blueprint. Somebody says to me, but Rick, I just feel like I've got to decide, do I believe Rick's principles or somebody else's? They're not mine. You can test them for yourself. Let me give you an example. Let's say you'd never heard of music. Let's say you'd never heard of a piano. If I sat down and played the C scale on the piano for you, I didn't invent music. I performed it. I showed it. I illustrated it. I demonstrated it. But the laws of music still exist, whether you've ever heard them or not. And if you want music to sound good, you need to learn some of those laws. And then if you want to perform them, that's great too. But I didn't invent the musical scales. I didn't invent the colors on the visible color wheel. I didn't invent anything on the electromagnetic spectrum, but I can show them to you. I can illustrate them to you. They're not my laws or my rules. I can just see them. The laws of physics, the laws of the universe, same thing. You see, there have been societies for time immemorial who have denied that those rules and laws exist. They put their head in the sand and they doctor you by letting blood, and they treat, witches by sinking them in ponds, and they have political monarchies because how in the hell else could you choose your leaders? And that stupidity led to dark and death and horror. And we have a history that goes against that, of enlightenment and the age of reason, that blossomed into the founders and what they laid as both the foundation of godly righteousness and civil harmony. And they studied the rules. They weren't the founders' rules. Jefferson said they were ancient rules. They discovered them. And then they used them. And it would be asinine and absurd to go back to them and say, well, you guys shouldn't have used, the Anglo-Saxons' rules. You should have used the Jewish rules. Their rules are the rules. They're not made by men. But some men have the gift to see them and teach them and lead them. When I say we need a blueprint, I say to you, I can see them. I'm not the only one who can see them. I'm the only one I know that's put them together and who's asking for my friends to stand up for liberty and follow a blueprint to do something amazing in reality. I don't want to just read the rule book on how to play football. I don't just want to put on a football helmet with a football and go over to the schoolyard and run around and imagine we're playing. I want to get in the game. I want a movement of friends who get in the game. You can drive around in your imaginary cars of liberty, my friends, but some of you know what I'm saying. Life is rich when you put first things first and let the consequences follow. You want to know the truth about LaVoy? His test is over. Ours is not. He died for an idea that he did not accomplish. I think in some ways his death was noble and honorable. In some ways I think his death was the result of a liberty movement that offers people sand for water and Legos for real building tools. That's not an insult to him, that's an insult to us. It's a challenge. I hope you'll accept my challenge. See you back here. In the meantime, go to freecapitals.com. Get in touch, would you? Take care.